Hello, it's Emma here with another episode for you. When I decided to start this podcast, I really wanted to focus on the things that I learned through entrepreneurship. I very much believe that entrepreneurship is like the ultimate personal development plan. It's like you decide to start your own business and you end up having to do lots of work on yourself. Well, at least I did. And it's actually a gift, but it can sometimes be uncomfortable receiving this gift. And so this episode is about one of these uncomfortable gifts. Now, I'm going to be talking about scarcity mindset, or rather overcoming scarcity mindset and moving into abundance. And it's all about my money mindset and how I discovered I had a sad one and what I did to heal it, to kind of change it over time. And this is kind of one of my core, I don't know, it's not a rite of passage. It's like, this was one of my biggest healing moments, I would say, of my entire life. And it was a lesson that I had to learn. I think if I hadn't started my own business, I probably would have continued living my life with a scarcity mindset without realizing it. It really took becoming self-employed to force me to face this issue that I had, which was there's never enough money. I was the queen of thinking there's never enough money or I'll never make enough. And I've talked about this a bit on social media. And right now on social media, or in the past, I primarily use social media to talk about my other business, Punchy, where I'm talking about messaging. But I would be inspired often to share a couple posts about my experience with money mindset and scarcity. And a lot of people lean in and have asked me questions. And I think it's because so many of us live with a scarcity mindset without realizing it. And that's because society is all about promoting a scarcity mindset. You know, that it's the root of why I think so many people feel the urge to accumulate and hoard and buy things. That really is all rooted in scarcity mindset. And so I wanted to share my story because I think it might be relatable. You might listen to it and it might strike a chord with you in some way, because you can have scarcity not just about money. It can be about other things. It can be about love. It can be about health. It can be about time. So it can be in many different forms. When I thought, okay, what's the first thing I'm going to talk about in one of my solo episodes on this podcast? I knew it had to be about money mindset and scarcity, because to this day, it's been one of my biggest life lessons that I've experienced, and it's made such a huge positive change in my life. I think if more people were living with an abundance mindset, I believe this world would become a better place. I think we would solve a lot of problems that we're experiencing as a collective society. Have a listen. Would love to know what you think about this episode that's all about scarcity and abundance. Welcome to the Emma Stratton Show. This is a podcast that's all about sharing unconventional advice that will inspire you to create a business that reflects your true self, so you can experience greater freedom and abundance in your work and life. I'm your host, Emma. So I first officially made the move, leaving the world of full-time employment in Labor Day weekend of 2015. And I have a very, very clear memory of that day. I was sitting in my home office and I was looking out the window, and kind of anything was possible, right? The horizon was open. I was no longer tied down with a job. I didn't have to report to anyone. I could do whatever I want. And I remember one feeling, and that was absolute terror. Like I'm on the top of a hill of a roller coaster and my seatbelt isn't fully all the way on and I'm about to go down the hill and die kind of terror. Like it was really, really deep fear. And it was around, how on earth am I going to make money this month or the next month or the month after that? I was so aware of the fact that my paycheck was not going to arrive every other week like it had for my whole working life. And this feeling of like what if I don't make enough money? What if I don't make any money? Really, really freaked me out in a way that felt maybe not normal. I remember asking another entrepreneur who I knew at the time, like how she felt. She had been working for herself for about 6 years. And I was like, is this normal to be scared? She's like, oh yeah, it's scary, but you'll figure it out. And I was like, no, but I'm really scared. Like, how am I going to make money? So fear kicked in really quickly. And I started hustling and taking on whatever work I could and doing outbound and all the things. And, eventually started making a bit of money. And by the end of the first year, I was actually able to make what I had made as a salary as a full-time employee the year before. Now, my full-time salary back in 2014 was $130,000 a year. Now, that may sound like a small number to you. It may sound like a big number to you, depending on your experience and your background. But for me, $130,000 a year was the most I had ever made. And to be honest, I thought it was a really high number for someone like me, someone who is a writer, who has never been known for having, marketable skills. I was into writing and art, right? I shouldn't expect to make money. So I always thought that 130,000 was pretty good for someone like me. So after that first year, I was able to make that amount. The following year, I was pregnant with my third daughter, and I took half of the year off for maternity leave. And lo and behold, I made $130,000 that year. The following year, when I was fully back for the year doing lots of work, again, I made about $130,000 a year. And that's when I started to notice that something strange was going on. Why was I only making this amount no matter what I did? It was like no matter which way I kind of approached my work, I was making the same amount of money. And it got my attention. And at the time, I had joined a business coaching program for women entrepreneurs. And I got introduced to the idea of mindset and this idea that your subconscious mind actually controls a lot of our thoughts and our behaviors and ways that we show up in the world. And I remember my coach at the time talking about how a mindset is often like a thermostat. A thermostat, you kind of set a temperature to say you want it to be 70 degrees. And this thermostat means that if it suddenly gets colder in the room, it will warm it up until it gets to 70. And also if it gets really hot, it will cool it down. So that no matter what is going on in the environment of that room, the thermostat is always going to keep it down to 70 degrees. And when I was listening to this mindset mentor talk, I thought, oh my God, that is what's happening with me in the $130,000. My mindset was keeping me stuck. I kind of figured that out, but I didn't really understand anything about it. So I ended up diving into the world of mindset, and most specifically money mindset, to try and understand why I couldn't seem to make it past this number, but also why was I so scared around money, and why was I frozen in complete terror that moment that I went out on my own and had to bring in money for myself. So I remember thinking to myself, I think I have a money mindset issue, right? And almost out of the blue, it was a coincidence. A friend of mine emailed me, and she had been running her own business for a couple years. And she said, hey, I'm going to read this book called You Are a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero. Do you want to read it and figure out this money mindset thing? And I said yes. And that was the beginning of me really understanding what money mindset issue is and why I had it. And I just think it's so fascinating because it was one of the biggest unlocks for me early in my business. And my money mindset was actually something that was holding me back for many years. And it wasn't until I addressed it that things really changed and I was able to start earning more. And it's so important, and yet I hadn't heard anything about it. And so that's why I want to talk about it today, in case this is something that might help you or something that would resonate with your experience. So a money mindset issue, another way to talk about that is having a scarcity mindset. So maybe you've heard of this idea of scarcity or scarcity mindset, which is a belief that there's only so much to go around, right? Resources are limited. You can only expect to get a slice of the pie, and you got to fight off others to get what's yours. That is scarcity. And it can apply to money, right? Like there's only so much work to go around. I got to get me some of that. But it can also relate to health, right? Oh, I can't expect to be healthy all the time. Love, right? There's only so much love to go around. How much can I expect for myself? Lots of things. This idea of scarcity, of believing that there's only so much to go around. You got to hope to get a little bit for yourself. And more than likely than not, you're going to feel like there's never enough love for you, never enough money, never enough work, never enough friendship, never enough happiness, whatever. Scarcity. So that is a scarcity mindset. And what I didn't realize was that I had a scarcity mindset in many areas. And the biggest one I had was around money. I believed that there was never enough money. Now, I worked with a mindset coach to help me with my scarcity mindset. And she asked me to kind of explore where these ideas came from. Like, why did I believe that there was never enough? And what I realized was that a lot of my scarcity mindset really came from my childhood, and more specifically from messages from my parents and my mother, who had grown up in Malaysia in real poverty. Her father had died when she was young, had 7 kids, and they had to go get handouts from the local church to eat. And she grew up in poverty. And so that poverty mindset of there never being enough money followed her. And that was kind of how our household was run when I was growing up. So the sense of there's never enough, right? There's never enough money. You've got to save. You've got to hold on to what you've got because you might run out. So that is why I grew up feeling like there was never enough. Now, I did not have a scarcity mindset when it came to fun or love or relationships, right? For me, it was really around money, right? And so I kind of got through life with my scarcity mindset just fine when I was employed. I mean, I was a little cheap. I was always saving in my savings account. Like, it looked not bad, right? But it was making that move into being almost the leader of my own destiny, the person who's got to magic up the money myself. I can't rely on anyone else. That was when I really understood that I had an issue with scarcity mindset around money. Now, the opposite of scarcity mindset is an abundance mindset. So maybe you've heard of this as well. It's the opposite of scarcity. It's the belief that there is plenty, that there is infinite health available to us, infinite money and opportunities and clients available to us, infinite health and wellness that you can experience. There's plenty for all of us. There's no need to fight. There is something for all of us. So the abundance mindset was something I naturally felt in love and relationships and health, but not with money. So when I was working on my money mindset, I wanted to move into that abundance mindset and start to really believe that there was plenty and that I deserved to experience as much abundance as I wanted. And it was a very, very strange thing to believe for me back then, coming from where I came from. So I talk about money mindset. I've shared about this on social media quite a few times, and a lot of people have asked questions about it and asked kind of, what are signs that you have a money mindset issue? And there's many different signs. For me, my symptoms of money mindset, one was around like obsessive hoarding of money or obsessive savings. So even when I was not making a lot of money, I would always save. It was almost like a fear-based saving, like, better save because there's going to come a day where it's going to stop and there's not going to be enough. And I don't want to be left out in the cold. So I better save, save, save. So I would save, 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 save and never spend. So that was one thing. Another was I wouldn't really treat myself to things that seemed indulgent or unnecessary. Call it frugality, but I would kind of wear like a shabby fleece. I wouldn't get rid of it, even though it was kind of old and kind of made me feel like a schlump wearing it. I wouldn't spend a lot of money on a new fleece. I would be pretty frugal with myself. So I was very slow to part with money and spend it on things that even if I needed it or it make me feel good, I wouldn't do it. The other was fear around not enough business for me, or I'm not going to get enough clients, and almost like a fear and a desperation around new business opportunities. Like something in me be like, oh my God, I better get this because then what? If I don't get this, there may not be another opportunity, right? So there was this almost desperation, I would say, behind new business opportunities. Let's face it, it's not really a fun way to go into a sales call, desperate that you're going to get this because, oh God, what will happen if you don't? So those were probably the biggest ones that I felt when it came to money. So those are the symptoms. And like I said, it was when I started my own business that it really came to the fore and became an issue, something I needed to address. So how can you address a money mindset issue? So say you've realized, yeah, maybe I'm feeling a bit of scarcity. What can I do? So I went on quite a journey. So it started with Jen Sincero's book, which I'm going to do a separate episode where I talk about that book and some of the great learnings from there. Her book is a really great overview of money mindset, what it is, little exercises you can do. It's a great place to start to really understand what is this, where does mine come from? There's some really good exercises and journal prompts you can do. So that's a great place to start. That's where I first kind of came to terms that like, I've got a problem. I got a money mindset issue. The next thing I did was I worked with a mindset coach. So there are many people who specialize in mindset. There are business coaches who help you with mindset. There are standalone mindset and neuroscience practitioners. My mindset coach was trained in NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, which is a way to rewire subconscious beliefs. So I did NLP to rewire some of my beliefs that I had from growing up. You can also do EFT or tapping, which is another way that you can rewire subconscious beliefs. So I did that to really clear out some pretty gnarly subconscious beliefs that had to be cleared. And that is one thing I will say about money mindset. A lot of our mindset and worldview around money is shaped when we are children, and it's shaped by our family and by the messages we heard as kids, usually from our parents. Now, I don't know if you know this, but we are sponges, and the things that we hear or learn before we are 7 years old, we take as truth, and man, we lock in our brains, and they become beliefs in our subconscious that will continue to run the show well into your adult life. And that's pretty wild to think that the way we do many things are based on these beliefs that we form when we're 6 or 5. I mean, I have a 7-year-old daughter right now. She's wonderful, Willa. But man, I wouldn't want her beliefs, well, some of her beliefs are cool, but I wouldn't want some of her beliefs setting how I do things now as a 44-year-old woman. So a lot of our beliefs are long held, and it can be very hard to shift them or reframe them. I did affirmations, right? Where I would repeat phrases like, money comes to me with ease and flow. Another one I liked was, receive large amounts of money because the more money I make allows me to be more of me. So I would say these affirmations, acknowledging that I was okay with receiving more. And those affirmations are a good way to just start to feel more comfortable around receiving more. They were very hard for me at first, but you get used to them as you say them over and over again. And affirmations are great, but I had to go to a mindset coach because the affirmations only got me so far, and there were still kind of bigger beliefs that needed to be cleared. So if you try things like affirmations or you read Jen Sincero's book, but you still feel like you need more help, I recommend going to see a mindset coach or a practitioner who can help you with rewiring those beliefs, because wow, once they change, everything will shift. So I learned that I had my thermostat, my mental thermostat was set at $130,000 a year. And that came from a couple places. I learned that one, I could not really imagine going beyond that because I had never tried to think beyond that amount of money. I'm not super money motivated as a person. I've never been someone who's like, I want to make as much money as possible. It was really more about, I want to find work that I love. But I couldn't really, or I hadn't visualized beyond 130,000. So that was part of the problem. The other part of the problem was that my dad, now he'd been retired, but years ago, that's how much my dad made, or how much I believed my dad made. And I love my dad, right? And there was a part of me that almost didn't want to make more than my dad, that almost had to seek permission. And that one surprised me, but that came from my mindset coach after doing some exercises and realizing that that's another thing that was fueling that $130,000 number, which was seemingly out of thin air. And that one was interesting. And I remember my dad came over, and it was after I'd been doing this mindset work and I was feeling really different about Punchy. And I think I was really committed to growing Punchy and making it bigger than just me. And I said to my dad, Daddy, I'm going to be rich one day. And it felt so strange to say that. And even the way I was saying it, I was asking for permission from him. I was basically saying, Dad, is it okay? Will you be okay if I make more than you and become rich one day? And I kind of thought he was going to laugh at me, like, you're right, rich. And he said, Emma, I've always known you were going to become rich at doing something. I've always known that, and I expect it. And I remember kind of choking back tears because the child in you is still wanting to please your parents, right? Even though I was so much older, that piece was still holding me back. So I did a ton of work. I would say I did a year and a half of sustained work on healing my scarcity mindset and having a healthier abundance mindset. And the changes were huge. My business doubled pretty much the next year. And it's hard to kind of draw the line exactly to what changed and how the mindset led to X amount of money. But I will tell you changes that naturally started to happen to me. One was I threw out a bunch of my cruddy old clothes that, quite frankly, I didn't feel good in. And I definitely didn't want to go out and market my business and do new things. And I hired a stylist, which felt very indulgent and not me. But I hired a stylist and I invested in new clothes for work and just to kind of level up my regular clothes. And I think that sort of fed into being willing to be more visible in my own marketing. So I started giving free talks in person in downtown Portland. I started posting on social media for the first time. I mean, 2019 was the first time I had really posted on any social platform, but I felt better about doing it in better clothes. When I healed my money mindset, I started charging more. So I kind of recalibrated the worth and the value of the work I was doing. And I wasn't afraid to raise my prices and ask for more for the work that I was doing. So I felt confident and felt natural to raise my prices. And I started to attract more clients as well. And I don't know how, right? Other than I was more receptive to it. Because here's what I have come to believe through all of this is that we do live in an abundant universe. I mean, just go outside and look at the plants. Look at weeds. They grow like crazy no matter what. We live in an abundant world. And when we are born, when we are babies, we expect all the love and all the food and all the cuddles and everything. I'm like, you don't see a baby like not crying because they're like, I don't deserve that much love or I don't deserve that much milk. It's like, no, the baby is like saying, hey, I want all the things. And we're born that way. But as we grow, we get messages like, oh, you don't deserve that. You shouldn't take that. Or you shouldn't. And we dim and we think that there's not enough. But I'm telling you that there is plenty: love, health, relationships, clients, opportunities, jobs. There's plenty for you, for me, for all of us. And they're trying to come to us right now. But we have to answer and be willing to receive it, to see it, to take it in, to try it. And when you have a scarcity mindset, you're too busy focusing on what you don't have and what's not there that you're missing what is there. I know that was the case with me. And when you shift to an abundance mindset where you think, there's plenty, there's lots, there are opportunities everywhere. Let me be open to it. Let me be receptive to it. More will start to come to you because you are open to it. And really, money, opportunities, love, friendships, jobs, things, it's all going back and forth, back and forth. It's energy, right? It's going back and forth. So staying abundant, I am now pretty much in an abundance headspace most of the time. But there's the rare moments. And when I get to the new level of something, some of those old money worries and fears can pop up. So there are a couple practices that I do to keep me in that abundance mindset. And these are maybe things that you could do as well. One thing I think, because I was an ex-money hoarder and a saver, one thing that I started doing back when I started the work and I keep doing is give little bits of money away freely and regularly. So whether that is giving money to a charity, seeing a random GoFundMe page come up that you connect with on social media and just giving a bit of money there. At the grocery store, whenever it asks, the card reader asks if you want to make a donation or round up, I always do that. Tipping, always for everything. And giving these little bits of money is helping you circulate money, right? Keep that flow, not hoarding it, but circulating it so it will come back to you. But it is also a reminder to yourself, yes, it's safe for me to do this. I can share. I have enough that I can give to others, even if it's $1, right? Even if it's just a little bit, that act of giving opens up the channels, puts you in a place to receive, and reminds you that, we live in abundance, that there's plenty. When I moved to an abundance mindset, not only did I kind of get more business, but I lost any sense of like competitiveness with other consultants or at all. I can't remember the last time I felt competitive or worried about like someone encroaching on my territory. I mean, back in 2015, when I started doing messaging for tech companies, like no one was really, it wasn't a huge thing. And over the years, it's become more popular and more common than it was back then. And I've never worried about, oh, will there be less for me? I think there's just so much work available. And also, people need different types of help from different types of people. And so it's really important that we're all out here sharing our gifts freely in an abundant way and not through that scarcity lens of, oh, let me win at this one area. Now, the business world, the tech world, which I work in a lot, I think is very much in scarcity in the mindset, right? We talk about TAM and we got our pie charts. We're trying to win in categories and things like that. And I don't really agree, right? I believe that it is more infinite if you choose to see it that way. So that is my story about money mindset. And hopefully you found it helpful. And if you think this is kind of interesting, I might have some issues, I want to learn more, I do recommend Jen Sincero's book, You Are a Badass at Making Money. It's a hilarious read. I will talk about it in a future episode, but it's a great place to start and take some steps towards moving from a place of scarcity to a much happier, relaxed state of abundance. So thank you so much for listening to me today. It's been a pleasure spending time with you. Until next time, keep shining bright, my friend, in business and life. See you soon. Hey, my friend, you've been listening to The Emma Stratton Show. If you'd like to follow me in my writing, you can find me on Substack. Thanks again for listening.